Hi, welcome to nickbackos.com. We are on Lesson 8, Snare Drum, from Percussion Guide for the Beginning Band Student. The next group of lessons are going to focus on instruments. So the first portion of what we've been doing in our guide is talking about techniques that we can carry over to instruments. So let's talk about the snare drum and what makes it unique and some of the things you have to think about. The snare drum is a two-headed drum with snares on the bottom, what gives us its name. Now this is a unique drum because it's going to have a little more different types of snares. I have nylon, cable, and your traditional snare. You're going to see those types of snares on a little more expensive snare drums. But for you who are starting out, you're going to probably just see the traditional snares, one set of snare on the bottom. And that's what gives it its unique sound. It is a staccato instrument, which means short and detached. So creating length of sound is something we're going to talk about, and we do on this instrument. If you look at your key points, I have a series of things on there that you need to know when you set up an instrument. But it doesn't have to be in order. So for instance, there's a term called ducks in a row, where you have to start with the first idea and move down. Not for our percussion instruments. As long as you're thinking about these key points, you're going to get the best sound out of the snare drum. So let's talk about a couple things. Number one, the angle of the snare. For match grip, it's always going to be parallel to the ground, flat. And that's the standard way of playing. So for instance, you'll see some techniques in traditional playing where you'll see snare drums tilted to the side. And there are specific reasons for that. But the standard way to play match grip is flat. A key point. The snares of a drum should be completely in front of you. Why? Well, if I'm playing, and I'm going to move this down just a little bit so we can see it a little better. So I am always playing on top of the snare. So if I wanted to move up to play soft, I'm always on top of the snare. I'm going to get an even sound. Another thing you like to try is taking the sticks and keeping them close together. Why? Well, you're going to get an even sound. Because if I move them around, I'm getting a variety of qualities to the snare, and I would like it as close as possible. Another key point you want is taking the snare drum and bringing it about belt level. Now, because we keep our belts at different heights, the younger you are, the lower it seems to be. It should work out perfect. But someone like myself, I might have it about 2 inches lower than my belt buckle. And that allows me to get that 50% bounce, 50% rest. If you don't receive that 50% bounce and it feels like you're getting more bounce than rest, for instance, if the snare drum is too high, you get too much bounce. If the snare drum is too low, you use too much rest. Find a hot spot. Find that perfect spot that's comfortable. Something I didn't put in the key points. Modern snare drums do not use an internal muffler, which means you can hear a lot of ring on your snare. There's a lot of different ways. They have external mufflers that you can buy. I have one that I can place on my snare, and it creates a sound that takes away some of the overtones I might not want to hear. The older snare drums will have an internal, but over the years they found out that it affects the snare drum sound, so they don't make them anymore. And I've seen people put cards on there, just simple tape, put some Kleenex with some tape, whatever you like to use. But the external muffler is going to make a big difference in your sound. Let's talk about some of the things you never do on a snare drum. This is your battered head where you strike, and underneath is your snare head. This is designed for vibrating the sound, bouncing it back. If you were to play on this thin head, you're going to damage it. So you don't want to fool around with or play on this soft head. You don't want to fool around with your snares also, because if these bend, you're not going to get an even sound. For my percussionists who play drum set, try to keep your snare sticks separated from your drum set sticks, because when we play drum set, many times we use rim shots, and it can really damage your snare sticks. So you want to keep your classical sticks separated from your drum sticks. And also a reminder, Now we're going to bring our technique to the snare drum. Remember to relax hands, only use wrists, let stick bounce, and then height of stick. Those 4 rules in combination to the setup is going to give you a great snare sound. Now let's review all key points. Number 1, snare drum should be flat, parallel to the ground. Throw off is directly in front of us, so we're always striking on the snare. The height of the snare drum should be approximately to your belt buckle, just a little lower depending on where your buckle is. This will give you your 50% bounce and 50% res. Also, to get an even sound, tips of stick are close together. So when you're striking the snare, you're going to get the same quality. Remember to answer all the questions. Look at the Imitate What You See section in case you have any questions and you forget the basic setup before you read the key points. Thank you for joining me at nickbackos.com. We are on Lesson 8 Snare Drum from Percussion Guide for the Beginning Band Student.